Good afternoon, everyone. We will now call this meeting of the Public Safety Standing Committee to order. The Chamber Emergency Evacuation and Public Speaker Guidelines are as follows. Upon activation of the emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use the exits to the left or right front of the council chamber or the east or west stairwell outside the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, security will direct everyone down 9th Street to the assembly area located inside the former Public Safety Building parking lot. Able persons should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. Those providing public comment during this meeting will generally be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Individuals appearing before the committee are not allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, use language of a personal nature which insults or demeans any person, including comments directed at public officials or staff members that are not related to their official duties, or address or question staff members directly. All questions are to be directed to the committee chair. Failure to adhere to the guidelines may result in speakers forfeiting any remaining time and further disciplinary action as necessary, which could include barring from attendance at future meetings of the committee for a period of 6 months. And Madam Chair, for the record, all members of the committee are in attendance this afternoon except for Vice Chair Lynch. You do have a quorum.
Madam Clerk, first of all, I'd like to say today is National First Responders Day, and I would like to thank everyone for your service and for what you all do, especially the ones that come to all of our public safety meetings. We know that we can always count on all of you, and again, I want to personally thank all the men and women that are first responders in our city and all over our counties. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart.
Madam Chair, would you now like to open up the public comment period?
Yes.
We will now open the floor for public comment. If there is anyone present at this time that wishes to address the committee regarding items that are not on its agenda this afternoon, please begin to form a line in the center in front of the podium. Seeing Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Warren Braxton, a longtime business owner in Shockoe Bottom, a former nightlife operator from 1998 to 2015, and I currently serve as Criminal Justice Chair for the Richmond NAACP. For the past year, I've also been serving in an unofficial capacity as the liaison between Shockoe Bottom's nightlife community and the Richmond Police Department. I want to start by saying the police have done a great job bringing the numbers down in Shockoe Bottom. Crime statistics are down. So I just had dental surgery. Are down, and that deserves much recognition. But even with that progress, public safety in Shockoe Bottom is still missing one key partner, which is the city of Richmond itself. Our police have shown up week after week. They meet consistently. They have worked to de-escalate and to manage an incredibly complex environment. But the truth is, the police don't brand. The police police. And right now, Shockoe Bottom doesn't look like a place that's safe and inviting when visitors see flashing red and blue lights, barricades, and yellow tape. They don't see progress. They see what basically looks like a crime scene. The police are doing their job, but they can't create the environment or brand that says, welcome to Richmond's incredible culture district. That part has to come from city leadership. I've already met with Council President Cynthia Newbill, who is incredibly receptive and determined to help find answers. She understands that in order for the Shockoe Valley Plan to come to life, including a state-of-the-art slave museum and the surrounding development to succeed, the city must work hand in hand with the community on the ground. The results from a recent survey that I conducted in Shockoe Bottom showed that over 45% of the respondents said they still feel unsafe or very unsafe in Shockoe Bottom at night. More than 75% are highly dissatisfied with the parking situation in Shockoe Bottom. Only 11% describe their nightlife experience as something satisfying. And several said plainly, stop the blockades, have officers walking the streets. Again, this is not something that the police do. The police have to police. That's their job. So while crime is down, the business economy is struggling. There are weekends
30
when
seconds.
RPD is busy and out in full force, but the clubs and restaurants are so slow that they decide to close. Shockoe Bottom's challenge can actually become Richmond's opportunity to solve a public safety concern while building a world-class entertainment district. It takes intentionality to find a vision for Shockoe Bottom and working with and in the bottom to make this vision real. Richmond can't police its way to progress. It has to partner its way to prosperity. Thank you.
Sir, I want to say thank you for coming here today to bring this to us. I have not had a conversation with the president, Cynthia Newbell, about this, about what you just brought up today. It would have been nice if she would have shared it with me and with my colleagues. Also, I'd like to say that we have an excellent police chief and officers that do a hell of a good job. And with all the things that they have to encounter, and you know that since 2020, since those riots in our city, we've lost 160 some police officers, more are leaving. And guess what? Population's growing and growing every day because I see it in my district. And I think that with all the things and challenges that they have and what they have to do, because they have to be careful so they don't cross the line, and some of them get arrested and go to court, and guess
Right.
what happens? Some of our officers get convicted
Correct.
for doing their job or doing what you're asking them to do and what we are asking them to do. So I would love for you to come back again and we can talk, or you can always call me. You got my number, 804-240-5050. You have my cell. You have my home, 804-233-7382. You can call me anytime. I'm up every night to 1 a.m. And I'd love, like I said, I love that you come here and that you brought this to our attention. And I love that you did say that we need to do something about parking down there, which we do have some towing companies here today. And, you'd be nice if you'd sit there and talk to them too about some things you would like to see, and also continue the conversation with our police chief and with us. And
Yes,
again,
ma'am.
thank you so much.
I thank you, and thank the police for all the work that they do.
Yes, sir. Chief,
right.
did you have anything to say? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional speakers? Seeing no one, the public comment period is now closed. Madam Chair, would you like to move on to the approval of the minutes?
Thank you.
The minutes for approval are for the Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025 Public Safety Standing Committee meeting held at 1 p.m. If there are no amendments or corrections, those minutes stand approved as presented. Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Madam Chair, would you now like to move on to the paper for consideration this afternoon?
Yes.
The paper for consideration is as follows. Item 1, ordinance number 2025-222, and that's to amend City Code concerning towing and storage fees for the purpose of modifying the limits on fees charged for the towing, storage, and safekeeping of certain vehicles removed from private property. That paper is now before the committee.
Good afternoon, Lynn Lancaster, Department of General Services. The purpose of this paper is to amend Section 27302 of the City Code for towing and storage of fees from private property for the purpose of making the City Code comparable to the State Code. This amendment is separate from the city's towing contract with Manchester Marketing doing business as Cypress Towing, and the city will not receive any revenue from this ordinance. That was one of the questions you had the last time. So what this ordinance is doing is increasing the fees from $135 to $195 for private property tows. That has not been increased for at least the last 7 years. It also makes item 1 and 2, A and B concurrent with what the state code says. And also, in line with what the city's contract with Cybers, item D, the administrative fees will increase from $50 to $75. Item E is also in the city contract with Cybers, so I wanted to make that concurrent with them. And then also item F is something that the tow board put in, that individuals or business entities which take payment for these fees cited in this section shall give the person making the payment or their representative a receipt with clearly itemized fees that they're paying. And that's part of the some of the complaints that we've been getting. They can't understand that what the receipts say, or it's not itemized, or what their fees are actually concurrent. Any questions?
Thank you for coming here today to clear this up. We really appreciate this. Thank you, Lynn.
Anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, at this time, would you like to hold a public hearing on this item?
Yes.
Are there persons present who wish to speak in opposition of this paper? Are there persons here to speak in favor of this paper? Please come forward if you wish to speak in support of this ordinance. Seeing no one come forward, the public hearing is now closed. Back to the committee.
I move to send this to full council.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. The committee is now voting on the motion to forward ordinance number 2025-222 to council with a recommendation to approve. Ms. Abubakar?
Aye.
Chair Trammell?
Aye.
That motion has been approved. Madam Chair, we'll now move on to the presentation for this afternoon being provided by Richmond Police Department Chief Edwards and Planning and Development Review Director, Dr. Vonk, for the regulation of vape shops.
Good afternoon. Kevin J. Vonk, Director of Planning and Development Review. All right. So we are going to talk about vape shops. More formally in the zoning world, it's retail sales of tobacco and hemp. I'm going to provide some context in terms of what led us to do some additional regulations from a zoning perspective, and Chief can discuss some of the efforts we've been taking in terms of enforcement and compliance of this ordinance, but also additional things. So why regulate retail sales of tobacco and hemp? Where this came from in terms of a public health and safety is drawing a line between what tobacco manufacturers are doing in terms of allocating lots of funds towards advertising at point of sale, with research showing that density, proximity of retailers to schools or other places where youth are present leads to a higher rate of smoking in adolescents. And those adolescents who smoke are at higher risk for developing long-term addiction. Long-term addiction leads to a number of negative health outcomes, lung cancer, COPD, heart disease, asthma. And so there's long-term tobacco-related illnesses have personal, social, and financial costs. And so it's a long way of saying this is a reason for the city in terms of through its zoning ordinance, which is enabling us to protect health, safety, welfare, impose some regulations on purveyors of tobacco. And so in July of this year, City Council adopted a new ordinance, 2025-157, amended sections of the zoning ordinance concerning specific regulations for retail sales of tobacco and hemp. And so what that is, it's any business or establishment that sells, offers, or distributes electronic smoking devices, retail tobacco, hemp products intended for smoking, following the Code of Virginia definitions. So that way, if those change, we will follow along with them. And basically, it sets a threshold where one or more of the following apply. So any one of these makes you a retail sales of tobacco or hemp. 10% of the floor area or display area is intended to sell or promote that merchandise. 10% of your sign area, 10% of your inventory, or 10% of your gross revenue. Any going above any of that threshold classifies you as an establishment that is retail sales of tobacco and hemp. So, in asking and looking where to allow these types of uses. One of the things we looked at is other uses that are similar in the zoning ordinance, where we have allowed them conditionally, and that is nightclubs, retail sales of liquor, adult entertainment establishments, and they're generally allowed conditionally in these districts. So this map shows where those districts are mapped throughout the community, but then also some additional restrictions to have spacing from places that are not desired. So 1,000 feet away from any residential district, 1,000 feet away from any place basically where youth are present. So daycares, schools, parks, libraries, churches, and other places of worship. And then also spacing amongst themselves. That's 1,000 feet from another retail establishment. They can't do drive-up facilities, and the sales have to occur inside the building. So if you look at that, the map on the left shows where some of these places are. The red is the 1,000-foot buffer around those. So what's left, you see the gray area. Those are the zoning districts where it would be allowed. Any gray area that's present on the map that's not shaded out by the red would be a potential place that an establishment could apply for a conditional use permit to do retail sales of tobacco. The conditional use permit is like a special use permit. You apply for it, staff reviews it, planning commission makes a recommendation, and ultimately city council decides to approve or disapprove that permit. And so looking at ensuring compliance, existing retail sales of tobacco and hemp prior to the 28th of July are, use the term grandfathering, legally non-conforming, and may continue to operate unless they don't have a certificate of occupancy or certificate of zoning compliance, which is something that you get to show, hey, I went through the permitting process and legally I'm able to establish here both in being zoning code compliant and building code compliant. Or maybe they did go through the process, but they weren't forthcoming in what they were doing. And an instance is, well, they said they're going to be a convenience store. Well, if you look traditionally at a convenience store, you might think of a 7-Eleven, and you go inside and it is not a 7-Eleven, right? There's no chips, there's no soda, there's nothing else but tobacco. So they are not a convenience store. And so I think one of the challenges we're working through is when we do coordinated enforcement, we often do find building code violations, health code violations, that they don't have a business license, maybe there's delinquent taxes. Those elements are not in and of itself enough to stop the use. And so what we're looking at is, are there ways that we can look at ultimately at stopping the use through revoking the certificate of occupancy or CZC? So I get a little bit more, but I want to let Chief talk about what he's doing in terms of the compliance efforts.
Right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I'm Rick Edwards, Chief of Police. So I think it'd be instructive to talk about what the current laws for marijuana in Virginia are, because there's some confusion regarding that. And I placed it here. I won't go through all of it, but essentially some legal behavior is possession of up to 1 ounce in public of marijuana, home cultivation up to 4 plants, private adult sharing up to 1 ounce, and registered medical cannabis patients can legally possess marijuana. There are some other civil penalties for consuming or giving, using marijuana in public, possession by anyone under 21, or possession of marijuana between 1 ounce and 4 ounces. All those are civil enforcement with the maximum penalty of $25 fine. It is a misdemeanor to possess it in a what's called an open container, openly possess marijuana inside of a car. Also, possession of 4 ounces up to 1 pound is a class 3 misdemeanor, and public possession of more than a pound is a felony. And then that escalates as we, if you distribute one up to 1 ounce, it's class 1 misdemeanor. Distribute between 1 ounce and 5 pounds is a felony, with up to 10 years of incarceration, and distribution of over 5 pounds is a felony with between 5 and 30 years. All of this is under the Virginia State Criminal Code 18.2-248.1. So that's a quick snapshot of the legality of marijuana in Virginia. So I also thought it would be instructive to talk about our crime year to date. So this is based on last week's data. So we were at 48 murders this time last year, 45 currently. That's down 6%. Our non-fatal shootings are much lower. 17% reduction in that. Our robberies are down 8%. Our aggravated assaults are down 4%. We have a huge increase in domestic aggravated assault that I've talked about at my last press conference. It's a reporting issue. And with that, an increase of overall 3% in violent crime. But if we adjusted, we'd be 5% below if we weren't doing that reporting differential for aggravated domestic assault. Where we are struggling is robbery commercial. So we had 47 this time last year, 54 this time currently, and that's a 15% increase in robbery commercial. And this is why 34% of our commercial robberies have occurred at vape shops. And unlike some of our other robberies, which are strong armed and other things, knives displayed, these are almost always takeover style robberies where masked men enter vape shops and rob them, frequently of marijuana, but also large amounts of cash. And I can report that just this month alone, we've had 3. In the past week, we've had 2 vape shops being robbed. So, and while we haven't had shootings at them, that is something that concerns me with the type of robberies that we're seeing, because of the fact that many vape shops are just de facto marijuana shops at this point. So we look at vape shops as not only the victims of crimes, but also, I can tell you this, I get complaints from members of our community from each of the council districts. It affects all of our entire city. We've done a survey of the city through our officers, because there's not a great way to track what is a vape shop, because not all of them have vape or tobacco or smoke in their name. Some of them sound like normal convenience markets, but our officers did an audit throughout the city, and there's 87 of these throughout our city. That's more than McDonald's or Taco Bell or other restaurants. We have more vape shops than probably any other store in our city. And what we're seeing is that almost the majority of them are involved in the distribution of marijuana or other THC products. Many of the products they sell are not criminal. They're heavily regulated, like hemp or vape devices or liquid nicotine, but the enforcing compliance with the guidelines for that are not within the authority of RPD. So we're strictly able to enforce illegal marijuana sales. And they, as I mentioned, they contribute to other commercial robberies. And the concern I get from a lot of parents, we've had parents show up to our precincts with packages that look like a normal candy, and I'll show you some examples of that. And they find them in their teenage child's bedroom and come to the precinct and say they bought it. There's no checking. There's no checking of ID at these shops. In fact, it seems easier for our kids to purchase these marijuana at these shops than it would be to buy a beer at a normal store. So RPD has executed 10 search warrants at vape shops thus far this year, with an even split between North Side and South Side. They've been on the Chamberlain Avenue and Broad Street and Broad Rock and Hull Street and South Side. Overall, we've seized over 75 pounds of marijuana and THC-related products. We've seized 10 firearms related to these search warrants. The challenge for us is oftentimes, even though we make arrests, we make these seizures, they're back open the next day. And while the community is often complimenting us and cheering us when we execute these search warrants, it's frustrating for them when they see the doors open. Now, we've had some success in placarding some of these shops because some of them had no certificate of occupancy for anything, no business license, nothing. They just rented the space and were operating unlawfully, and we were able to placard those doors. But those who do have a certificate of occupancy have been able to reopen, and we're looking at steps to try to address that in a unique way. But here's some of the examples of items that were seized from these shops. As you can see, not only a lot of firearms, but some of these packaging look just like normal, or what would be normal candy bars, like Reefers instead of Reese's Cups, or double stuffed Stonios instead of Oreos. So these are, and then, like I said, large amounts of cash, which brings with it the concern about robberies. So to finalize things for you, some of our plan going forward is to start examining these situations if we are able to find a pattern of behavior with these shops, to implement the city code for drug blight, which is City Code Chapter 11, Article 5, Section 11-156, which allows me to write an affidavit to the Commissioner of Buildings for a possible remedy through the Circuit Court. And we're going to explore that option with some of the bad actors that have been consistently. You got to figure every time we execute one of those warrants, not only is there a crime committed that day, but the day we first got the probable cause, that day occurred. And then oftentimes we're able to look back and find other crimes related to those stores. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have as well as Mr. Vonk.
Thank you both for this presentation. I know how, they've just become a scourge on the city and the region in general. And I think it's interesting. I was thinking when you were talking about how they're sort of incognito sometimes, I was thinking about Justice Stewart and when he, used the definition of obscenity saying, I know it when I see it, right? And I think that applies here to some of these vape shops as well. You said 89 shops across the
At least
city?
87 that are
At least 87.
identified.
What are ways that, I guess, I'm just trying to think creatively about what are ways that the community can help you in terms of identifying those shops, particularly the ones that may not from the exterior, look problematic, but when you get in there, you realize they're selling these. To me, this is unconscionable that, as a mother of a 2.5-year-old, that they have Cheetos that my son could eat and be hospitalized. I know this is happening across the city with lots of kids, and then they seem to be specifically targeting right across from parks and elementary schools. So, what are ways that the community, without overburdening or extending either one of your offices, can report when they find a vape shop or suspected vape shop?
They can certainly call us. The non-emergency number is 646-5100 or Crime Stoppers at 780-1000. Because you're right, there are some that are very obvious. We all see them. They're flashing multicolored lights. But we executed a search warrant recently on a shop that looked like a home from the outside. Now, they actually had a business license, but there was no signage. There was nothing. And we got a tip from the community and went in there, and it was just marijuana sales. So I think that if there is information, provide that to us. The first order of business for me, and we've spent the last 3 weeks doing that, is trying to find all the ones because it's not always easy and they don't always register with the city. So they don't even apply for a license. They're just setting up shop. So our officers are out there in these streets every day. So we ask them during their travels to identify the ones that they've been on calls or they've just driven past and seen. And 87 is the number we've come up with, but I bet there's more.
And knowing that this is a problem across the Commonwealth right now, is there any conversation with the state around, creating sort of a regional task force with Virginia State Police, knowing that we're 160 officers down right now? Is that something that we could look into?
Yes. So we work very closely with VSP and then also our regional partners. So we did 10 search warrants. Chesterfield and Henrico had investigations that led into the city where we executed them for them. It's their investigations, but in another 5 cases. So, and many of these owners have stores in multiple jurisdictions throughout the city. So we share intelligence once a month. We meet and talk about these because it is a complaint that is not just unique to the city of Richmond. It's in all the counties as well. So I think what is going to be interesting is to see, I think some people are waiting on the sidelines until the election next week to see which direction the Commonwealth goes as far as legalization. So I think that'll determine what needs to happen next year.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, for a question for you, Dr. Vonk, around, I guess, the enforcement of when somebody, so I'm just going to use the example I have in my district. There's a tobacco and vape shop directly across from Westover Hills Elementary School that popped up, I think maybe just a few days after July 28th. And it appears that was a transfer of ownership. when those businesses transfer ownership, they're no longer grandfathered in, correct?
So once the use has been established, the use can be grandfathered.
Okay.
And so this is, one of the challenges is, right, I mean, we put a line in the sand in July and saying, right now we've defined these things. As Chief said prior to that, you just came in, if you decided to come in, and would just, apply for permitting, zoning, building under just a general retail establishment. In terms of where the transfers happen, if the use is established and continues to operate, it is legally non-conforming and can continue to do so. It can become non-conforming if that use stops for a period of 2 years. So if you don't take advantage of that use and stop the use for 2 years, then you have to go through basically the new rules. And so most likely you would not be able to reestablish that if there's a gap in that period.
But there's nothing we can do right now for businesses like that one that is legally non-conforming next to an elementary school and playground.
Yeah. So what we're doing, and I think the chief said, is like, we're just trying to make sure those who are operating in compliance with the law. So the first check is like, hey, did you even bother to get permits? And if you didn't, that one's easy because then we can shut you down, right? Building code violations, zoning violations, great. The second is, all right, you went through, and again, as I mentioned, maybe you applied to be A, but you're really B, right? You're really a vape shop. And so we can say, hey, you provide false information. And we have a pretty good history of like, hey, if I'm a convenience store, I can take that CZC or CO for a convenience store and like, that's a convenience store. Playing match game, you look, that is not a convenience store. That is something different. Because we also have had some people prior to this apply for COs for tobacco shop. So there is a difference. And so we can say, look, you applied for A and you are B, you got to start over and reducing that away. So for those that I will say like went through and got all of their approvals, I think the next step is making sure you're not a nuisance. And so with the chief working on, our ability that if you are attracting criminal activity, that there's a path forward that we can petition the court to take some action to, again, move past that criminal activity. So I'll say those are kind of like the 3 stages that we work on. And what's helpful in terms of coordinating with other departments like finance and the health department, even fire in terms of like capacity is like you can bring a much larger and robust case saying like there's all sorts of other violations going on here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is probably one of the most frustrating issues that we deal with in the city. So couple thoughts. One, I know some years ago, one of our colleagues was able to curtail a pretty egregious convenience store owner. You're shaking your head. You remember this one, using our nuisance regs. What Kevin, do you remember or recall what it would take? What's the threshold for a business to meet that? Because I feel like this data here justifies.
Yep. So 2 things. One, I know there's been a case where ABC got involved, and ABC was actually able to leverage their power, saying, "Hey, if you'd like to sell alcohol here, you're going to abide by these rules." So they flexed. I think there may be some cases where if any of these purveyors do sell alcohol, we could bring in ABC to do the same things. As Chief mentioned, a lot of this is in Chapter 11. There's one thing that we're looking at right now. We have the ability to add in there, I believe it's illegal discharge of a firearm, to add in terms of like being a qualifying event to establish nuisance. And so it's a tool we haven't, I'll say, used jointly in some time, but I feel like as we're uncovering some of these things with these vape shop investigations, the chief, the building commissioner, and our staffs have been talking about how we could use that moving forward.
Thank you. I think it would be very helpful for if our staff is here for us to do a little bit of research and what we may need to update and bring forward as an ordinance just to strengthen that tool in your tool belt. The second question is, some years ago we increased our cigarette tax. If you can't push them out through policy, tax them out. So we do have the ability in state code to tax liquid vapes, and I was just looking up what that tax was, and it's only 11 cents. So we could implement and impose a I'd be all about that. Let's tax them, 5,000%. I think that'd be helpful for us to look at as well, if we can do a little research on what it would take to increase our the tax on liquid tobacco. And then thirdly, if you all have ideas, we are in the process of formulating our legislative agenda. We did have something kind of vague that speaks to our commitment to do something to curtail the rise of vape shops. But if there is something in code that would give you a better ability to regulate these stores, I mean, I'd love to just take all of their, I want to see them go away entirely. I mean, this is absolutely egregious behavior for our community. And I too, as soon as I saw the Cheetos and my Charlotte loves candy, she's a candy fiend, so am I. And so, I mean, just the thought that could be around a school and a child could ingest that inadvertently is terrifying. So in any case, if there's any state laws that you think would strengthen your ability to curtail or regulate these stores, ideas welcome.
Chief, you said that there are 87 vape shops. How many in Southside? Because every time I turn around, I see a new one. It's on every corner. And you talk about the robberies. That's right. I'll let you answer that question. Then
Well, they're evenly distributed. I can send you all a list of
Okay.
the 87 that we have and with the addresses.
that
But
would be
they're
helpful.
evenly distributed between South and North Side.
Okay, because I know that a lot of the business people on Broad Rock and some of the neighbors over there are very upset because y'all went in there, raided one of the ones on Broad Rock, and 2 days later it was opened again.
Yep.
And same issues are happening again at night.
Yes.
And I got a phone call yesterday for me to come over there and see what was going on. I said, I'll talk to the chief offline tomorrow from the public safety meeting when I see him.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we talk about the robberies and everything, and they're over here by the schools, these vape shops. But as they come in there and start shooting up, or someone decides, okay, I'm not going to give you what you want today, whatever, and then bullets have they could go shooting out the door. Children could be outside, and teachers and all that. That puts their lives in jeopardy.
Yes, ma'am. And it's, as we're executing these warrants for drugs, we're finding guns. So the clerks are arming themselves just out of self-preservation because they become targets, because it's generally a cash business. So folks are coming in there buying illegal marijuana. They don't want to use their credit card with that. So they're using cash. So large amounts of cash are being stolen as well as the drugs. And then, and like I said, the types of robberies are what we term takeover, where they're ordering everyone to the ground at gunpoint. In some cases, they're zip tying them. So very violent robberies. We're just lucky no one's been shot this year, but it could easily happen.
Okay. I appreciate my colleagues with their comments, and also that we're here to help you and the citizens, because they're the ones that are screaming out. And when you look at these pictures, I mean, we give these things out at our 8th district meetings, the Cheetos and stuff like that. And I mean, it's like, now I understand why some of the parents, when we give them the children the bags, they'll look into the bags to see what they are. Because I'm quite sure they have probably seen some of these photos thinking, well, it can't happen at the 8th district, but, because we go to the store and buy the stuff, but still, these things look so real, you wouldn't even know.
But you can buy them on Amazon in bulk as packaging material. So they're buying them and sealing marijuana in them.
This is scary. I'll tell you, this is really for our children and for adults too, because, just never know. But thank you, Chief.
Oh,
Thank you.
one last question. Sorry, it just sorry, Ms.
Yeah,
Trammell,
go
you're
ahead.
the with those. I mean, since this is a national trend, I mean, have you heard of any of these major retailers like Nabisco going after these manufacturers for IP violations? Because as a branding person, like I would never touch this with a 10-foot pole because these are major, I mean, these are major corporations that could start going after these organizations for a violation of using their brands. So have you heard anything about
I
that?
haven't heard that, but they're, like, they would never even know who's selling the marijuana from. I think it would have to start at the manufacturer of these packaging materials that are designed to look like trusted brands. And most of those are from overseas, and you're just ordering them on Amazon and getting 1,000 Mylar packages of something that looks like a trusted brand.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Madam Chair, we'll now move on to the board vacancy report for this afternoon.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Trammell, Ms. Lynch, Ms. Abubakar, Pamela Nichols, Council Management Analyst. The vacancy report before you this afternoon consists of current and projected vacancies through February of 2026. And you will notice that for the Community Criminal Justice Board, we have 2 vacancies for at-large members, and we received applications from 4 applications, one from Traquan Buskey, Jamal Mitchell, Nicholas Peck, and Jordan Waddle. I do want to note that Nicholas Peck was recommended by the Land Use, Housing, and Transportation Standing Committee to serve on the Commission of Architectural Review. And then moving down to the Richmond Ambulance Authority, there are 3 vacancies and we have 2 reappointment applications. And it's my understanding that there has been a request that the 3rd vacancy be continued to January. So we're just asking for you all to vote on the 2 reappointments. So again, for the Community Criminal Justice Board, you will see that there are 2 vacancies with 4 applications. A majority of the members have a principal place of employment in the city. We do have an individual from the 4th District and one that resides in the 7th District. And I just provided that information for consideration.
Thank you, Pamela.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, we're okay with this?
So which 2 would you all like to select for the Community Criminal Justice Board? Mr. Peck being recommended for the serve on CAR does not disqualify him. However, this would be a new appointment for him.
Ms. Nichols, what's the, for Mr. Waddell and Mr. Mitchell, what's the backgrounds of those residents?
Mr. Mitchell has indicated on his application that not a whole lot of information, but that he's just interested in getting involved. And then for Jordan Waddell, which serves, which shares the same address as Mr. Peck, seems like that they do possess maybe some educational knowledge with community justice. And then for Traquan, actually holds a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice.
Madam Clerk, we're okay with it. We have to.
I move to approve Traquan Buskey and Jordan Waddell for the
Okay.
Criminal Justice Board.
Okay. And then the two reappointments for the Richmond Ambulance Authority and to continue the last vacancy to the January meeting. Thank you.
Is that a part of the motion to accept the reappointments to the Richmond Ambulance Authority and to continue the last vacancy to January?
Yes, Madam Clerk, it is.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. The committee is now voting on the motion to forward the board appointment and reappointment recommendations to council for approval as stated, and to continue consideration of applications for appointment to the Richmond Ambulance Authority to the committee's January 27th meeting. Ms. Abu Bakr,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lynch,
Aye.
and Chair Trammell. That motion has been approved.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, would you like to move on to the discussion item?
Yes.
Right, CEO Chip Decker.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I am Chip Decker, CEO, Richmond Ambulance Authority. Thought it would be prudent to come before you today to speak of some of the external pressures that the Ambulance Authority is enjoying at the present time. But first, I'd like to thank the committee for recognizing National First Responders Day. I do appreciate taking the time to do that. Just briefly, some numbers. We're pretty much full staff. I am fully staffed for paramedics. I've got 7 full-time or 7 EMT positions open. I've got a new hire class getting ready to start with 10 people in it. My cadet program, which is where we take new folks and make them into EMTs, and so no experience necessary, has a waiting list now of 135 people. And so, yeah, it's things have definitely spun around. My limiting factor right now is the number of vehicles I can put on the street at any one time, just because of the number of vehicles that I have. And I'll get to that in a little bit. For September, the Ambulance Authority responded to 6,408 calls. And the hospitals is still one of our challenges. Once we transport, is getting the patient off of our stretcher, so we are available to go to the next call. And the average wall time, we call it, was just over 42 minutes. So it's still a bit of a challenge for us. So with the federal government shutdown, we receive the majority of our revenue from billing for service, and then the city supplements us, thankfully, because given our payer mix and the number of folks that use us more for primary health care versus, really wanting to go to the hospital, because we have I think between 25 and 30% of the responses we go to don't generate a patient. We only get paid when we take a patient to the hospital. Well, when the government shut down, Medicare stopped paying us. And so we have to float that. And so on the 21st of October, the federal government told CMS, Medicare, that they could start paying us again, but it's going to be at a reduced rate. And so, and it takes them a while to, once we submit a claim to get paid, it can take a couple of months. And so it's hasn't necessarily interrupted our cash flow right now, but we get to look forward to that happening down the road. As far as Medicaid goes.
Chip, hold on. So they're not allowed to do, that's not, does anyone challenge that legally? I mean, you just can't change the fee schedule midstream. And there's a whole process to the Medicare fee schedule, as you know.
The fee schedules remain the same. What they have is what it's called the add-ons. It's 2% for urban, and then there's a rural add-on and a super rural add-on. And those ran out and would have to be voted on again separately. So we have the base fee schedule, and then you have the add-ons, basically the cost of living adjustment, if you will. So we're going to get from the 20, we're going to get paid at the base rate of the fee schedule, if you will. Medicaid, we're looking for a reduction in the people that are going to be participants in Medicaid, just because of the rollback of the expansion. And that's going to be coming, particularly next year when some of the requirements change. So there are some funding challenges that we currently have, but best case scenario, the government opens up, says, oh, we're going to add re-up your Medicare add-ons and get you all paid. So fingers crossed for that. The other thing is a bit more pressing, if you will. Part of the ambulance authority's subsidy was to purchase some ambulances. And I have an ambulance replacement schedule. I need to buy 7 a year, and then I take a year off and buy like heart monitors, and then supervisor vehicles, and then I go run right back into buying ambulances. So as part of the subsidy, council was told that those ambulances were, going to be part of the bucket of vehicles, right? And it was also told to my board of directors. Well, we're having trouble finding where it actually made it into the bucket. So right now, today, and I'm looking at like a 30% cut in what my subsidy was expected to be. Well, these ambulances have to be ordered almost 3 years in advance. That's the lead time on ambulances right now. It has gotten crazy. The ambulances are built out of aluminum. The boxes of them are. And so that's also challenging because aluminum is caught up in some other worldly things. So these ambulances are set to, well, some have probably rolled off the line this month, 3 this month, 4 next month. And somebody is going to need to come up with some dollars. Because I can't afford, one, to not get them and then have to wait 3 years to fix it. So if you order one today, you got to wait 3 years to get it. It's the same for fire trucks, if you will. And so I can't let these things get away from me. The other thing is the crazy increase in price. We've been told to expect a 26% increase in the cost of an ambulance for next year. And so, yeah, I've kind of got it locked in right now. When the last administration decided that they didn't want to give me subsidy money to manage my fleet. They said, oh, we will buy your ambulances for you and lease them back to the Ambulance Authority. That's what we've been doing for several years. And a part of that is they wanted my ambulance contract. So I had to sign the contract over to the city. I don't have a contract right now. City's got my contract. So anyway, hopefully the administration will find in that bucket or come up with something that is, an alternative to, just losing those assets, those ambulances that we need to put on the street to run the calls. So that's kind of where we're sitting right there on those things. There are other things going on, but that's it for that.
No big deal, right? So, Chip, how many ambulances do you have in your current fleet?
32, 30, 32.
And how many are rolling off as of the, like, are you retiring any of those, or is that what you're going to have in totality?
I need, because of the longer time on task, I need additional at this point. I'm going to retire some of the oldest, but I'm going to add to the overall fleet.
How many?
7 are coming off. I want to keep at least 4.
So in order for us to avoid any further loss of fleet, because right now have you seen an increase in response times for vehicles getting on scene at all due to the lack of fleet that we have now? I've heard that like anecdotally used as a reason as to why.
So what's happened is sitting at the hospital makes my ambulance not available, right? And so that means I can run out. And certainly don't want to do that. So that it can impact response times if there's, fewer ambulances to respond. So at this point, not being able to put them on the street, we're having to do what we call hot swaps. In the perfect world with enough ambulances, what happens is at the end of the shift, you bring the ambulance back and it gets washed, deconned, restocked, and then goes out and another crew gets on it. If I don't have time for that, what happens is we shuttle the next crew out to the ambulance and swap the crew in the field, and the truck just keeps on running and running. That's why we go through trucks so fast, our ambulances so fast. The truck part, is always in use because we don't have reserve pieces. Everything that we have is frontline worthy and is in use. So, yeah, doing hot swaps in the field is not necessarily good for the vehicle. It's not good for the folks, and so.
So, as you see what I'm getting at here, though, is like when is the critical inflection point where your fleet numbers will start to impact response times? Because we don't want to. Is it 2 years from now? Is it like tomorrow? Is it right now? I think that would be a good thing to get a handle on so that we know.
I think we're trying to minimize any impact with response times, right? It's not necessarily due to call volume increase. It's due to other forces that are holding my ambulances. Now, what these ambulances are going to be doing, part of it, we have to run the 911 side, and then we have the pre-scheduled or non-emergency side, right? And that's the side that offsets the cost of the 911 side. Because the revenue per call is greater, about $100 greater for each call run on the non-emergency side. Well, I can't, if I have to restrict the number I run on the non-emergency side because I'm pulling those over into the 911 side, then I become more of an economic burden on the city. So it takes money to make money kind of thing also.
So why aren't we, have you ever explored subcontracting with a NEMT provider? Like, why aren't we doing that?
Subcontracting and taking a cut. Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
We do partner with non-emergency transportation providers when we can't handle it.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it takes about 209 non-emergency calls over the course of the year to pay for the ambulance, which is not that many. So it's very cost effective for us to run those calls. So we haven't, asked or, to grant somebody else a permit and to go down that path because I need that revenue to offset, I want the money.
All right,
I
one
need
more
to know.
question, because I'm trying to find out where you were in the budget that we voted on last year. And so this is for staff. So there should be a line item encumbered. So there's two, a 7.1 million for FY '25 and a 7.139 million for FY '26. So that was out of the general fund, and that was your agency organizational subsidy. So is that the line item you're speaking to?
That's there. We're getting that.
Okay.
What's missing is the $3.1 million and the capital side
So
for the ambulances.
the only two that we have, well, we'll have to go back and look where that is, because the only two that we have is for capital, is in the CIP, and it's renovations to the building at 1.9, and then 749,000 for FY '26. So we need to go back. So essentially, you're telling me that the funding that you're speaking to was in the overall fleet budget, the CIP fleet budget.
That's what the prior administration, the prior CAO told me.
And I recall us talking about, but we need to see it in the, but it needs to be encumbered in the budget and aligned.
Absolutely. And it may not be there. And that'll just, I'll have to do something different. But because I know it's in the hands of administration right now. Hopefully the paperwork was done to put it in the, in the vehicles or whatever it happens to do that. But anyway, that's the update so far.
Chip, I just wanted to say thank you for being creative and problem solving with this. I know that, we are halfway into FY '26 and you still don't have money that the three of us were told and you were told was in the budget for ambulances. This is not like you're asking for money for a spa day. You're asking for ambulances to be on the road. And I think I hope that this administration understands the gravity of withholding that money at this point. And just speaking from personal experience, having the experience to ride along in one of your ambulances a month or so ago. One, you have an incredible team that is serving the people of Richmond with dignity and care and expertise that could not be matched. Two, I experienced firsthand the wall time with hospitals, and that day there were every single hospital had wait times, and so your EMTs were doing a great job of trying to keep a monitor on what ED wait rooms look like, and if patient didn't have a preferred hospital, which everybody does have a preferred hospital. So, but if they didn't, they would recommend, the fastest one. But seeing that in real life, seeing how you're just sitting in the middle of this hallway in chaos, waiting for a bed to be released so that you can put the person. I mean, I would just assume there has to be a better way. I mean, is that just a product of the sort of American healthcare system and EDs right now? Or like, it seemed like they had real-time updates on wait times, but the data is good, but if it's not helpful in terms of moving your ambulances back onto the roads, it doesn't really matter. So is that like a national trend that you're seeing?
Yeah, national, if not international. Yeah, it's generally, whether it's a nursing shortage or a shortage of the technicians, anything from X-ray to, drawing your blood, is that impacts the ability to have enough, either floors or beds open. And so what ends up happening is somebody who should be upstairs, admitted to the hospital, is spending their hospital stay in the ER.
Yeah.
Which, so if you got a 40-bed ER and you got 30 patients living in it, then you're only rotating around with 10 beds.
Yeah.
And so it's that time on task that has caused me to have to increase my FTE count.
Yeah.
And the number of ambulances that I need.
Right. So that's the path of logic I was going down, is that, you're going to have to, it sounds like you don't have a problem increasing your personnel, like that you've got a great bench of people willing to come and work for Richmond Ambulance Authority. But if there's no trucks for them to drive, then it doesn't matter if you've got a wait list of 140 people. So again, I think what I'm hearing is we need to find that money for your trucks.
Right. And from my point of view, which there are many points of view, it's not necessarily new money that I'm looking for. It's just maybe money that the process didn't work. Right. And so I've been going through the year, and now it's okay. They're going to end up on my doorstep, and they're going to have their hand out, to be paid. And so.
So could we maybe instruct staff or request that staff follow up with Director Megan Brown and the administration, just to find out sort of where things, because I'm sure we could pull the minutes from the meeting where that was committed money, and just kind of find out where things went left. That would be helpful.
Well, I agree with that. I think, as I understand it, has this been an ongoing challenge in that
This year
and in years previous?
Years previous, what I was told, I got.
Okay.
If they said, all right, yes, you're going to get, $7 million, you're going to get $10 million, and so I have been going along thinking my subsidy is, $10.1 million for this year, and 7.1 is for, the day-to-day operations, and the rest is for the ambulances. I mean, there are options, but I've never not been able to count on what I was told actually happening before. This is something new. I've been doing this a long time. So hopefully we'll sort this out before the ambulances arrive because, so they've been in the works for years. And so it's not like, oops, this year I want to buy ambulances. No, I made that decision back yonder. And it's just coming forward till the due date.
So perhaps what we want to do, adding on to that letter, Councilmember, if I may, is if we're talking about a letter, is to maybe not assume, because we may not be able to find like a public discussion to go back to or point to. So what we may want to approach this as is like almost a supplemental budget request. And for the administration to come back to us with recommendations as to how they would meet the $3 million need, and see what their recommendations are.
Chip, I just don't understand. Year after year after year, you have to come down here and beg and plead for what you need. It's just, it's not fair. Also, I've been told that the money was there through Depth Services City Council.
I was told that too.
You were told that too.
Not from this administration,
No.
but during the budget process, the negotiation.
I think there's got to be
I
some
was
minutes.
told.
There's got to be some minutes on record, whatever. I think it even was discussed at one of your board meetings. And I think that I'm with my colleagues. We need to get this information. Megan Brown needs to come before us, maybe the CAO, and bring us this information that we're asking for to find out, because I will tell you right now, the population has growing and growing and growing. Over 222,000. We know that we don't have enough police officers. We understand that. Thank God we got enough firefighters that do help out with the police. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen your people interact with the police too, to help when there's been a crime scene or there's been things that they've had to take the patients away. What happens if we have another incident like we had on Bales Road a couple years ago, where somebody was laying there on the pavement, pregnant, 9 months pregnant, and had no one to take her to the hospital? That made social. That made the news everywhere, and also all over the internet and everything else. And you come here all the time asking for what you need, what you definitely need to keep your operation going. And it's not fair that you're denied, or we're going to make you sign this or get rid of this or get rid of that. Because I'll tell you right now, if that ever happens again, this council and the mayor should be held accountable for something like that.
I'm hoping it's just a clerical error that can be easily remedied.
Well, both of my colleagues, we've asked for this information, and I'm asking right now on record, we want this with the city attorney. Can you please help us with this too? And also, I've brought it up to, I've asked Steve Taylor to help me with this several months ago, but I know that he's been stonewalled, like can't tell you or don't have it. Well, we want everything as of today to be brought to us ASAP. And also our chief of staff, I'd like for you to be involved with us with this information, because this is critical. This is definitely critical. And Chip, I want to thank you for coming here today to bring us this information. And please, keep us informed. You can call any of us anytime to let us know what you're hearing and what you're not hearing. And I will tell you right now, to this afternoon, probably after 6 o'clock, I'm going to make a couple phone calls to someone that I know that could probably help me with this information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to ask that all this information that we've asked for today, we want a letter written to the CAO, right? And we want an answer within the next 2 weeks. ASAP. Thank you. Oh, Madam Clerk, anything else?
No, ma'am, that is all on the agenda for this afternoon.
I'm sorry. Madam Clerk, I'd like to make an announcement that on Monday, November 10th, and I'm right, Fire Chief, we're going to be over there at Station 21 for the big celebration at 11 a.m. Chief, what's the address on Richmond Highway? Is it 20? What is it, hon? 2505 Richmond Highway. That's going to be Monday, November 10th, 11 a.m. for the big celebration of our new fire station number 21. Everyone is invited to come, and we're going to have some dinner too. Okay, thank you all. Meeting is adjourned.